the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. That's why I created the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Every show is 30 minutes, and the guests are my Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. They're so wonderful. Financial advisors, divorce attorneys, mediators, divorce coaches, therapists, and more. We talk about every subject that you can even think of having to do with divorce. The podcast is meant to empower you and inspire you and make you feel really, really confident so that you can have a good divorce outcome and a great post-divorce life. You can find the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling. Before we get started, I want to tell you that the finance aspect of divorce can feel stressful and daunting and confusing. How much money do I need to live comfortably? Am I going to be able to stay in my home? How am I going to prepare my taxes without my spouse? What should I ask for in the divorce? These are all questions that most people really don't even know how to begin answering, and they have so little confidence in themselves when it comes to anything financially related. Well, you know what? There is someone that you can actually hire to hold your hand during your entire divorce and help you make important financial decisions. His name is Hirsch Sermon, and I've known Hirsch for several years. He has an MBA, he's a CPA, and he's a certified divorce financial analyst. And he's a financial divorce coach. He isn't trying to get you to invest your money with him. He's trying to help you make good decisions and have the best divorce outcome possible. If you want to learn more, you can find Hirsch at lifecycle.financial or in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to tell you about a wonderful divorce attorney in Arizona. Her name is Ardenae Fox, and she's the founder of her practice, Fox Law Group. Ardenae has been practicing divorce law since 2015, and she practices divorce, juvenile, and adoption law. Formerly, she served as an assistant attorney general representing the Arizona Department of Child Safety in dependency, guardianship, termination of parental rights, and adoption matters. I really trust her. She's a great person, and she's very experienced and dedicated. If you want to learn more, go to foxlawgroup.com, and you can also find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I am going to dedicate this whole episode to anger because I think it is very, very common. I believe it is in every divorce. Even if you tell me you have the most amicable divorce, there's going to be some anger and resentment. And we're going to talk about what anger can do to you if you let it consume you, the toll it can take on you and your body, the benefits of releasing it, and strategies for anger reduction. I am so excited to talk about this because if you are willing to work on your anger, not that you shouldn't feel angry, but if you're willing to work on it, you're going to be so much happier and have such a better life. So this was not my idea at all. It was my guest's idea. My guest is Juli Walton, LCPC and therapist. And Juli wrote this article for Divorced Girl Smiling called Anger After Divorce, Understanding Its Impact and Pathways to Healing. Juli is the founder of her practice, North Shore Reach. She's been a therapist for a long time in the suburbs of Chicago and also can see people in Chicago and through Zoom. And hi, Juli.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good. Thanks for the great topic, the great article. And I read the article. Great, great advice.
You're welcome. Actually, I think it was your idea. Thank you for giving me credit, but I think it was your idea.
Well, so I just said, hey, I think we need to do something on anger. And you came up with this amazing article because I'm sure, tell me if I'm wrong, that probably almost every client you see has anger issues.
Yep. Even outside of divorce, but absolutely when it comes to
Right.
divorce.
Right. Okay, let's talk about well, let's even start with, like, types of anger. Anger at other people, angry at the world, angry with God, angry with yourself. I mean, is it all the same?
Well, anger is a protective emotion. So it happens because there's something going on for us that almost requires a part of ourself to protect us from the anger itself, because anger can be very pervasive. And when we lose control of our anger, it can be very toxic. So, I mean, I think foundationally, clinically, anger is all the same, but it's going to be different when you're going through a divorce versus if, um, you know, your kid got snubbed by a coach and, you feel that that was unfair. It's going to come out differently. It's going to last a different amount of time. It's going to present itself and then, um, sort of land in your life differently. But foundationally, I think anger is always the same. As I said, it's an intense emotional response that serves as a protection for us.
And what are we protecting ourselves from?
Well, I mean, when you're angry, you can have a lot of really negative responses in your body, both, somatically, like physically, as well as it can affect your relationships. It can affect choices that you make. It definitely affects your health and your stress level. So when you are angry and resentful, um, the anger sort of it protects you from doing really negative things, and it protects you from, like, I'm thinking of one client. I can't really use these examples because I don't want it to be I
Too
don't want
Yeah.
yeah. But, like, there's a lot of things that this client would really like to do that they won't do, but their anger is it's just
Frustration. Their anger is frustration.
right, they live with this anger and this resentment all day, every day, and it's exhausting, and um, it controls them. You become hostage to your anger.
So it sounds like that's frustration. And what I was asking is, isn't anger protecting us from like our fear, our pain? Like, I know when people are angry, I think to myself, that person's in a lot of pain.
Right.
That person has a lot of fear. That person is feeling like a victim. There's other things, and anger is just like an easy way to, it's how we express it.
Right, if we're not angry, then we're vulnerable, and if
Right.
we're vulnerable, then that makes us many other things. Anger protects us from being vulnerable. So, yes, you're right, fear, loss, vulnerability, things like that.
All right, let's get into physically. So for this podcast, the audience who's listening is either thinking about divorce, have a lot of anger about in their marriage or going through one. This is long-term anger, not like, oh, the coach didn't put my son in. We're talking long term. What can it do to you physically if you are not dealing with ways to manage the anger?
So, I'm sure we've all felt, in a moment where we're triggered, anger happened to us, and you can feel your heart race, you can feel, your blood, kinda like running through your veins. When you are in a perpetual state of anger, it affects your cardiovascular system. It increases your blood pressure. Some people have to go on medication. Obviously, when anything cardiovascular is going on, it can increase your, rate of stroke or your, the likelihood of stroke. So anger causes stress, and as we know, stress is very unhealthy. Your metabolic system is affected. Anger can cause weight gain because you're so angry and frustrated that you don't know what to do, so you eat. Um, it can cause a loss of sleep, or it can cause inadvertently excessive amount of sleep. It affects your musculoskeletal system, and that there's tension and headaches. So physically, anger can do a lot of things to you that's really unhealthy besides just the emotional part that you're dealing with.
All right. And what are the tolls of anger? So beyond the physical effects, what can it do to prevent you from having a healthy, happy lifestyle?
So, as I mentioned, anger can hold you hostage. It keeps you in the moment instead of freeing you from whatever event in your life that was toxic that caused this anger. So of course, this is a divorce podcast. Let's assume that you're involved in a very, very negative, high conflict, you know, legal battle or just custody battle or anything that can go on in a really nasty divorce. Um, Anger, it ties you to the person that caused this anger. And anybody who's going through any of those situations wants nothing to do with that person. They want to stay as far away from that person as possible. Yet somehow anger keeps you tied to that person. And it allows the other person to have control over you or power over you because you're not letting go of these really big feelings that keep you tied to them. So it entraps you. It keeps you in the past tied to the individual or the source of this betrayal and injustice.
Okay, so I was just gonna say a big buzzword right now is, he's living in your head.
Mhm.
He's taking up rent in your head, and that makes you even more angry because you don't want that.
Right. Right. So it keeps you so in essence, you're giving power to the source of your anger. And you do not want to do that. You want to let go so that you have the power yourself, the power and the control. And that leads to the next point, which is that it keeps you from growing. If you're being held down by all this negative emotion, negative energy, connection to the past, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to heal. You're not going to have positive energy that's going to allow you to forge a future that is new since you're divorced, that looks the way you want it to look with healthier people, healthier choices. So it keeps you entrapped in the past and it obstructs growth.
Okay, now we have to take a break, but have one more question that I think is important. You do tell your clients that you have to feel the anger, right? So is there like a balance? Is there like, okay, I want you to feel it and then we have to talk about how to let it go? How does that work? Because it is healthy to feel anger.
It's healthy to feel anger as long as the anger doesn't become chronic to the point that you can't function without it. You don't want that anger to define you. And so, um, in the article, I talk about victimization versus victimhood. And I think it's a really important thing to distinguish. And so, your point about feeling the anger, yep, you need to feel it. You need to feel all the feels and process them and go through that and then with your therapist on healing. But you don't want to become in this place that's victimhood. So, victimization is when something is done from the outside to you. Again, you're in this really high conflict divorce and you're in a really unfair legal battle. You're a victim of our legal system. That's victimization. But when you choose to remain a victim, when you choose to hold on to your anger and make that your identity and not let go of it, then you've chosen to take up residence in victimhood. And that's a very big difference than victimization. Victimhood is when you you do this to yourself, whereas victimization is when something has been done to you. Your spouse betrayed you. They stepped out of the marriage. They cheated on you. That makes you the victim. Victimhood is when you choose to stay and not let go of your anger. So yes, you do need to feel it, but you need to feel it in a healthy way. You need to process it, and then you need to learn how to manage it and live either with it in a much smaller way or let go of it.
Right. I love that. Julie, this is wonderful. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, I'm here with Julie Walton, LCPC therapist, has a big niche in helping women and men going through a divorce or thinking about one or after divorce. And Julie and I are talking about anger. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the benefits of releasing anger and clinical strategies for anger reduction. I love this. Julie has 7 tips for you that are like practical tips. We're not just telling you to like, think about this, think about this. This is like practical tips. I love it. So we'll be right back. Did you know that 52 million American adults currently own some form of cryptocurrency? That number includes so many divorcing couples whose divorce attorneys are not trained to do valuations of these currencies. And furthermore, they don't know how to find these assets, which are often hidden in a divorce. Ryan Settle is the founder of Block Squared Forensics, a company that he started, which is the first and only blockchain forensics and cryptocurrency auditing firm dedicated exclusively to family law. He recognized the gap in the industry and started this company to help you not only find cryptocurrency assets in your divorce, but to put an accurate valuation on them. So whether you are a divorce professional listening to this and you need an expert, or you are somebody getting divorced whose ex has cryptocurrency, get in touch with Ryan. You can find him at blocksquaredforensics.com, and you can also find him in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to tell you about a great divorce attorney in Orange County, California. His name is Mark Gorelick, and he's the founder and a partner with Gorelick Family Law. And Mark specializes in complicated, complex, high-asset divorces. Mark has been doing this for several years. He's really good with high-conflict cases involving custody issues, child support, spousal support, paternity, and domestic violence. If you want to learn more about Mark, you can find him on his website, which is gorelickfamilylaw.com, and you can find him in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. If you're getting divorced and you're listening to this, do you feel like you're angry? Do you feel like you can't let it go? A lot of times people say to me, like, I want to let my anger go. I just can't. I don't know why I can't. So that's why what we're talking about today. My guest is therapist Juli Walton. She's the founder of North Shore Reach. You can reach her at northshorereach.com. She sees clients all over Chicagoland, actually all over Illinois if you can Zoom. And she's been doing it for a long time. And Juli, do you hear that a lot? Like, do people say, like, I really don't want to be angry. I don't like myself when I'm angry. Nobody wants to be like resentful, bitter, and angry. Do they ever say, like, how do you let it go?
Yes, being angry is a very, very exhausting emotion. Um, and I think initially when we've been wronged, when we've been betrayed, that anger feels good, right? I mean, it feels really good to be so angry and want the other person to know that you're really angry at them. But at some point, it's very unhealthy, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, physically and emotionally. It affects us. It affects our relationships. It affects our health. It affects our growth. Um, it affects our inability to move on. So holding on to that anger is never good, but it is important to identify it and to process it and to work through it. So yes, many clients who are going through hard times are angry and don't want to be angry. They want to get past it.
Okay, this is how I feel. If people are listening and you're thinking, like, I'm going through a divorce. This is the worst time in my life, and I have so much anger. Think of it this way. Anger is a toxin. Just
Mhm.
like if you smoked a cigarette all day long, you just keep smoking cigarettes, you're putting toxins in your body. I believe that anger is a toxin, and you deserve to not smoke. You deserve to not have that toxin in your body. So, Juli, tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't there an element of self-love that plays into this where it's like, I love myself enough because I know that if I don't release this anger, that I'm not going to be as happy as I could be. And because I love myself so much, I'm going to release this anger.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you are in an emotional state that is dysregulated, self-love is a really important way to overcome that state, to get yourself out of the negative and move yourself over to the positive. So, absolutely, self-love is a huge part of it. The problem with anger is that it's so intense that sometimes we can't reach that self-love. Sometimes we have to do a lot of work before we can go through all the layers of that anger. It depends on what happened to make you angry, and it depends on your skill set. It depends on your coping mechanisms. But yeah, self-love is a huge foundational aspect of learning to let go of big feelings that are not serving you.
And by the way, if you're listening, Julie and I are not telling you, let go and get over it. That's not what we're saying. You don't ever have to forget that your ex cheated, how he treated you, what he did financially, blew all your money, whatever it was. You don't forget it, but you release it so that you can move on.
Right.
And that's really the difference. Okay, let's get into the benefits of releasing anger before we talk about these awesome clinical strategies for anger reduction. So, what are you going to get if you release the anger?
Well, first of all, you're going to get self-preservation, which is one of the things that you just mentioned by, your self-love, saying to yourself, I deserve better than living like this. Your physical health is going to improve. Your stress level and your cortisol level and your cardiovascular system are all going to normalize. They're not going to be, going haywire all the time. Your sleep is going to be better. Your clarity, your mind and your thinking is going to be much clearer, and you're going to be able to make decisions that are feel good decisions, decisions that are for you, as opposed to when you're angry, every decision that you make is about how to deal with this horrible situation that's been done to you, that victimhood. Um, your restoration of agency, which is probably the most important. When we have agency, it gives us freedom to make decisions and create goals and live our life that um, keep us keep us future focused, as opposed to being bound to the past and being held hostage by the past. So having agency over your future and how that looks is another huge benefit.
Okay, this is a story. I just want to tell this really quick to people listening because I kind of want to scare you a little bit. So you'll be like, okay, I'm ready to manage my anger. I'm going to go see Julie. I'm going to work it out. Okay. I knew this woman and she had this extremely popular store, business owner. It was thriving. Sold like antiques and art and all this stuff. Everybody bought stuff from there. It was like she was just raking in money. Her husband cheated, had an affair, they got divorced. She was so angry that she talked about it with all her customers, and eventually I went by there and the store was closed like a couple years later. She could not release the anger, and it's so sad to me because she was just such a powerhouse business person, and she had it, and her anger really caused her to lose a lot more that she didn't have to lose had she managed the anger in the right way. It was like a sad story to me.
Well, that's the whole thing about anger, is that the intensity is, I mean, it can become so chronic and so intense that you lose sight of what you're angry about. And it just becomes the way that your whole identity is your anger. And so that is a really sad story. And I feel horrible for that woman. And it can happen to anyone if you don't get the help that you need.
Right. And by the help, we mean therapy and or divorce coaching. I personally think that everyone going through a divorce needs both. And people are going to say to me, well, what's the difference? I have a therapist. I don't need a coach. Or I have a coach. I don't need a therapist. Julie, what's the difference?
We talked about this in one of our podcasts, actually, and in one of my previous articles. Um, Well, so the analogy that I used back then, and I can kind of use it again today, is if you come to therapy with a suitcase, or if you come to a session with a suitcase, a coach might say, let's open the suitcase, let's go through what you need and what you don't need, and then we can take what you need in order to have a better future, throw away what you don't need, close it up, and then you be on your way. So you're taking with you into the future, the items that you need. Whereas a therapist might say, let's open the suitcase and let's go through each item one by one and see what the attachment is to that item, whether it still serves you. If it does still serve you, what the purpose of it is and how it's going to help you. And if you need to keep it, that's fine. What's it going to look like in your future? If it doesn't serve you anymore, if it's something that has created harm or has created bad habits or has gotten you to this place, then let's talk about how it'll feel to get rid of it. And so at the end of the session, you close the suitcase with the items that serve you and you've kind of unpacked the different um the different periods of your life and how you've gotten to this place and how you don't want the next periods of your life to look like that. And so you take with you what will give you those changes.
Both incredibly beneficial. So I'm going to give an example. Let's say you're getting divorced and you have no idea if you can afford to keep your house. If you want to keep the house, where do I move? What should I do? You go to a coach, the coach is gonna say, "Okay, well, let's get a CDLP involved. Let's figure this out. Let's look at the numbers. Let's see if it's even an option for you first." Therapist isn't gonna do that. The therapist is gonna say, "What does your home mean to you? How do you feel when you're there? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like it's too sad for you to be there? Tell me how you're feeling." Right? Is that kind of the difference?
Yeah. Or a therapist might say to you, well, the CDLP and you have figured out that you cannot afford to stay in your house. So how are you going to be? I mean, you're going to have to sell your house and find something else. What is that going to be like for you? How are you going to manage that? How are you going to how are you going to feel when you see, your dining room furniture being taken away because you can't bring it to your new smaller home? Um, there's not going to be a fence for your dog in this new house. How's that going to be for you when you have to realize now that you have to walk your dog instead of just opening the back door and letting him out? These changes that you have to go through are going to be really, really hard. It's not bad enough that you found out that your spouse cheated on you and that you had to go through this horrific divorce and that your kids are affected. Now you have to move on top of it. And when you move, your life is going to look entirely different. Tell me about that.
Right, and how do we release and manage the anger you're feeling about that? And how do we unpack this where as a divorce coach, we'll say, "Okay, what do you want your life to look like?" Well, there's some overlap, but in very different ways. And so it's so nice to have both your emotional support and dealing with your feelings, like what we're talking about now, and also the practical help with people who really know what they're doing, who can help you make the best decisions and help you have the best outcome. So great. Okay, let's move on to the clinical strategies for anger reduction. So these are evidence based approaches that can support individuals in moving beyond chronic anger. I'm going to list them and you explain them, Julie. The first one you wrote is emotional acknowledgement.
So this is sort of like what you asked earlier about like owning your anger. Whenever you have a really big emotion in therapy, it's really important to name it because when people are super anxious, if they're like ashamed that they have anxiety, that's a really big thing that they're hiding behind and it creates more anxiety. So in this case, if you can say, I am really angry. I am so angry. I don't even know what to do with myself. It's all I think about. Naming it and talking about it is the first step towards reframing it. If you can frame it from I am so angry to I am experiencing anger, what happens is it releases it. You are no longer like that's not your identity anymore, that I'm just this angry, miserable person that walks around and can't shake it. Instead, what you're saying to yourself over and over again is, I am feeling a lot of anger, and this anger is not helping me and it's not healthy. Feeling angry is different than being the anger itself.
Okay, next one, cognitive restructuring. I love this. So you say, people often say, like, he ruined my life. He
Right.
took the best years of my life. So tell me if I'm right. Cognitive restructuring is saying that in a different way. And how do you say that?
Correct. So cognitive restructuring is saying and thinking the same thought, but in a way that's more productive and more healthy. So instead of saying, he ruined my life, you can say, you might be thinking that to yourself, but you start practicing saying something that's more positive and healthier, like, I am building a new life for myself. So when someone says to you, someone that you run into and they say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about your divorce, or I'm so sorry that that happened. I heard what you're going through. They may be trying to be empathetic, or they may be just being nosy. Whatever their intentions are, your reaction, either he ruined my life or I'm trying to build a better life for myself, can really change the way that you feel in that moment. You may not want to talk to this person, but they approached you. You may not want to talk about what they're talking about, but they brought it up. And so you have a choice. You can either jump right in and engage in all that anger and say, yeah, he ruined my life. And then who knows what happens from there, or you can reframe it. You can cognitively frame it and say, "Yep, that did happen, and I am building a better life for myself now."
Okay, next one, expressive writing. And I don't my glasses, I don't know, I can't see this so well, but I thought it was gonna say excessive writing, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what I did." So, expressive writing, journaling.
Well, journaling is a proven technique that helps people in therapy. It allows you to express your feelings. It allows you to facilitate meaning making around your feelings without necessarily having to talk about it. It's available to you at any time. You wake up in the middle of the night and you're overwhelmed with these feelings. You can sit down and journal. You're having a really bad weekend, a really lonely, quiet weekend. You can sit down and journal. And nobody has to see it but you. So it doesn't have to be proper grammar. There doesn't have to be, you know, sense to what you're saying. And you can make it as pretty or as ugly as you want because it's your journal and it's personal. But it allows you to make meaning of your feelings. And when you go back and read your journal, oftentimes it's really revelating.
Okay, couldn't agree more. Obviously, I made a whole business out of journaling. Um, but I do want to say when you're in that heat of the moment, when you're angry, it's a great time to journal because you feel like you're telling somebody. And if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's no one to tell, or something just happened and you don't want to call anybody hysterical or no one's available, journal it. And it's like you're telling somebody, you get validated, you get to express what's really bothering you. Just don't send it. I tell a lot of people, you can write a letter to your ex and tell him how you feel and express everything, but do not send it. Put it in a drawer. And like Julie said, look at it again. And then you're going to look at it a month later and go, wow, I'm not even upset about this anymore. Great. Over. Done. I can move on.
And
All
it's
right,
that.
next one, I'm sort of rushing through these because we're running out of time, and I wanna get through them all because 'cause they're all great. Supportive dialogue, therapeutic settings, or trusted social supports provide safe environments for processing anger without reinforcing cycles of blame.
It's pretty much self-explanatory, going to therapy, talking to your friends, talking to your family, getting support when you need it.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Ritualized release, what's that?
It's kinda cool. It's very symbolic, and not everybody's into these kind of things. Um, you can go to a lake and throw stones in the lake and name each stone, like, um, this is for when he did this to me. This is for when he did this to me. This is for how our children are going to be affected by this. So all these grievances that you have, you can um like symbolically discard them. It's there's actually a Jewish tradition called Tashlik. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but on the high holidays, um, you take bread to a lake and you break off pieces and you throw it into the lake, and with each time that you throw a piece of bread into the lake or a cracker or whatever, you say a prayer or you ask for forgiveness. It's usually done around the high holidays, and it's very similar to this ritualized release in terms of, I mean, it doesn't have to always be a lake, it can be anything, but, you can write a letter and burn it. You can do anything that allows you to let go of these individual grievances that as a whole are a very large burden, but individually, it's, one by one, these are the things that I'm angry about that I'm letting go of.
All right, now people listening are thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna burn my wedding dress. I'm gonna burn my photo album of my wedding." Please don't. Please take it from me. I took my wedding video when I was in a fit of anger and threw it in the garbage, and I could never get it back. And my dad is now not with us anymore, and I'd give anything to just watch that part of the video. Don't do anything out of true anger, like fury, and burn anything that you might someday want or your kids might want.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, we're out of time, and I'm so bummed because I could go on and on with you. I have so many more questions, but Julie, thank you so much for talking about this great conversation. Loved it.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
And if you want to talk to Julie or set up an appointment or have a consult, you can find her at northshorereach.com. You can also find her at divorcedgirlsmiling.com under trusted professionals under the therapist section. She's an LCPC with several years of experience and a great, great therapist. And I know that because I know one of her clients. So thank you again, Julie.
Thank you, Jackie. Take care.
And thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.
Bye bye.